How are you?
Yeah, this is perfect. Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good
I'm
to,
joined today with two amazing human beings in the Alpha generation.
uh,
My son Leroy and his best friend Gavin. They're quite smart, so they'll catch this they're very fast. I
okay.
know I'm waiting for maybe like two more people, but
Sure, we can wait
since
a
we're
few
recording
minutes.
this, we can definitely just move on. If they join us, they join us. If they don't, we'll be able to share the recording.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, this is amazing because we've spoken a couple of times on WhatsApp, and I think I've shared a little bit about my journey. I've been on a
Yes.
journey of helping my dad, reverse
Why don't you,
his
why don't
diabetes.
you, why don't you talk again about a little bit about your dad and who your dad is, and then a little bit about your journey and what you're doing for your dad.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is a bishop. His name is Pastor Paul Kuria in Kenya. And he's been preaching the word of God for over almost 40 years now. And
Wow.
he has a couple of churches across the country. We started an organization in 2012 called Church Care Limited, where the intention was to impact communities through churches, because in Africa, every 10 meters you go, you'll find a church, because
Right.
we believe in God. We believe in the presence, because it is an experience that we've had at a very deeply personal level, and even our our DNA memory has a lot of information that prove this to be true. So, and again, my dad has been one person who has allowed me to think outside the box. So, as much as we have a bit of limitation from how the religion was brought to Africa, he gave me a chance to think for myself and to seek for myself. And so, at this, we're at a stage where. In Africa, where the young generation is awakening, to the fact that they've been seeing a lot of things that are not happening properly, through government. And then recently, what completely just messed my nerves is we lost again a very big bishop in Kenya, from
Right.
cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we can preach a Jesus that saves and heals, and we can see that for ourselves. And so there was something that was off. There's something that is just not hitting right.
Right.
And well, as I have been on the journey of helping my dad, reverse his diabetes, and then this happens to the Church of Africa, I'm like, you know what? Let's just cut to the chase. Let's just hit the nail on the head. Let's get to the right people who understand what's been going on, and not only understand, but have actually something to do about it, or something to say about it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I
Very
had a
good.
vision. I had a vision of Reverend Kathy Kuna, who is the wife to the bishop who recently passed away, holding a scepter, or a
Wow.
staff of, and to me it appeared as a staff of Aaron, even though I don't have like an idea of how that staff of Aaron would look like. If I see it, I
Wow.
know that that's what I'm talking about. It's like carved, and all that. And then later on, we talk about it. I tell you what is on my mind, and we start talking about the staff.
Yes,
And
David
then
Sadia's staff. Oh, here
and
we
then
have.
and then the funny thing that happens was there was an earthquake, right after our conversation. And then I read a story about this conversation about this stuff being in our history, or in our Kikuyu culture. And then the example or the analogy they are giving there was an earthquake, or the king asking whether there was going to be an earthquake. So that was weird and crazy and amazing.
Yes.
And,
I can.
so I knew we had to have this conversation. So I'm all ears. Leroy
Okay.
and Gavin, do you want to say hi?
Paul Mondo. Do you know Paul
Yes,
Mondo?
please. Yes, that's
Okay.
one of the guys, yeah, who will be
Okay,
joining us.
wonderful.
Um, yeah,
Leroy,
so yeah,
Leroy
that's
and
basically about what's been on my mind and in my heart. And so to speak with you guys, I just recently did a short video on YouTube, and I talked about David Sereda and the work that he's been doing.
Yes.
Um, and so to have this conversation with you right now is pretty amazing. Paul, good to see you. We're just getting started.
Yes. Good to see you, Paul. We'd love to see everybody if we could get everyone on video, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Leroy, Gavin, Paul, we'd love to see you. Oh, there you are.
Hey,
how
Paul,
about
what's up? Yeah, you have
Leroy?
amazing light, Paul.
Yeah, I'll switch on the light so that it can get brighter.
Yes,
Just
I can
give me a
see
second.
you. Moreru told me a few things about you, but not too much. So how about Leroy, Gavin? You want to introduce yourself? Paul, somebody introduce yourself. Who wants to go first? Maybe Leroy, Gavin, since you came first.
Hi, I'm Leroy.
Wow. Hi, Leroy.
Hi, I'm 11 years old.
You're
I'm
11 years old. Wow.
Yes, yes. I'm in year 7 and excited to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Gavin.
Hi, Gavin.
Um, I'm 14 years old. I'm in
Yes.
grade 8, going to
Wow.
9, and I'm a friend to Lee and Waweru. Thank you.
Wow. And Lee,
All right.
and who's so Leroy, tell me more about you.
Where is my father?
Where
And
is your father? Okay.
yes, and my grandfather is Paul Korea, and that's
Gavin, you want to say something?
Uh, uh, I'm just looking forward to discussing with you guys and learning more
All right,
on
my
this.
dear. Paul, you tell us something.
Paul, I don't know whether you managed to check out the website that I had shared earlier.
Yes, I had. Sorry, I was trying to get a place where the light is better. I guess I've never done calls at night, so I've never had to figure out that my light is this horrible.
Sorry,
I
sorry.
yeah. So I guess yeah. So well, my name is Paul. I'm a friend to Waweru. When Leroy said that his granddad was Paul, I was waiting for him to say Paul Courier before you assumed I was
Yes.
Waweru's dad.
Yeah, you don't look like you might be dad.
Exactly. I was like, I know, I don't look like a granddad, but yeah. So anyway, Waweru is my friend. We've been friends for almost 20 years. Yeah, so looking forward to learning more about this. I'm a businessman. I do a lot of things in the tech space, but
All
yeah,
right.
I really wanted to understand more about this and we see
Did you
how
check
this
out
could.
the website, Paul?
Not fully, to be honest. I told him I'd join just because I'd like to hear more about it. He'd explained a little bit
Okay.
more,
Okay.
so that's what I'd want to just delve in and listen to about this.
So when you say you want to learn more about it, it's a huge subject. David Sarita
I
is a
know.
huge subject. David
Yes.
Sarita's products are a huge subject. The technology is a
Yeah.
huge subject. Can't be told in a few minutes here and there. So if you have questions, it's easier. I can do a small presentation if you want. I could try and accommodate that, and we could try that. But that'll take us a good hour into our meeting. Does everyone have
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. So for me, I think specifically it was around the space of how we could make real estate be more in like how can we make our living space be much better? Because at the moment, I don't believe we do plan for that. I don't think
Yeah, true.
uh, I don't think people build with that kind of
Intention.
uh, intention. And so
Yeah.
my focus mainly was around that because if it's possible, we can try and make the next level of development, can we be a bit more focused on this?
Yeah, so we can put coils in the walls, for example. We could put
Yeah.
David Sarita coils in the walls, that would do it. Or just people buying a cube, a David Sarita cube, and having that cube in their premises will do wonders for their space.
Okay.
Okay.
I know you have I know you have a presentation that you do. I think for me, what I'd be really keen on, just for the purposes of this call, would be if we could have like a bit of an idea about like an introduction from yourself about David Sarita, and then you touch on like the purposes, or rather how we can improve the quality of the presence of God, so to speak, or the healing capacity of God in church, and then also how that translates into real estate, in our personal space. I think that would be amazing.
So
If you could,
I'll do a short presentation with you, and we can go from there. So basically, David Sarita. Well, first of all, I have to do this disclaimer if we're doing this presentation. So the website davidsarita.co is not intended to give medical advice, make any diagnosis, or to discourage you from seeing any physician. Always get your doctor's advice first. The information contained herein is informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. None of the statements in this presentation have been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration or Health Canada or any other health body for that matter, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. Please also know that any testimonials or any things that are mentioned in this video are also personal experiences of those people, and the results may not be the same for everybody. So that's the first thing. Sorry, hold on one second here. You guys can see my presentation, can you?
yes, we can see.
Okay.
Very clearly.
So next, this is David Sarita. Anyone can tell me about David Sarita, what you know? Who can tell me something about David Sarita? Anything. You can use the information here to cheat if you need to.
Well, what I know is for sure he is one of the, if not the greatest genius in these times that we are living in right now.
Right.
And I understand that he is using, especially, he's using technology that is mostly developed using, I've seen a lot of copper, which got me very interested because it's in our culture, copper is like, even our clothes, the ones that we wear are in the same color. So that hit very hard. And I know that he uses sacred geometry and amplifies the frequency of the geometry, to create a coherent space or to create harmony within the atmosphere or
Very
within
good.
the frequency around. So
Very good. Hang on here one sec. I'm just going to stop the share for 1 second because I just noticed I have the wrong background. There, that's better. Okay, so who's David Sarita? David Sarita was born in Edmonton, Alberta on August 21st, 1961. His birthday's coming up. He's one of 5 boys. He's the second oldest. His father, he was a PhD in education and psychology in Berkeley, California. He dedicated his life to ensuring his children's growth in spirituality. He influenced David as a great driving force in encouraging him to meditate. His mother was a lawyer as well as a carpenter in California. Crystal Sarita, that was David's wife. She was a singer, and they met at a blues concert, and they were introduced by Dan Aykroyd. Anyone know who Dan Aykroyd is? Kids? Who's Dan Aykroyd? Anybody?
Sounds familiar, and I don't know where I can place that name from.
Anyone seen the movie Ghostbusters?
Ah, yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's one of the Ghostbusters in the movie. So David's wife was introduced to him by Dan Aykroyd.
Mm,
So Dan Aykroyd introduced us at a world meeting of sorts, wherein my husband was introduced to me as a UFO researcher and historian. David, among experts and friends, were brought in to analyze some UFO footage in the screening room. At that time, I especially enjoyed singing jazz and blues in Los Angeles. I was professionally trained in opera technique, which I use with my husband's music to create a new way of recording with the 5151 frequencies, being the first to ever be recorded in modern history out of our scale of life, new harmonic music scale. Those are Crystal Sarita's words, David's late wife. We have also enjoyed filmmaking together, which includes our narrating, acting, filming, and my singing vocals for our documentary films, alongside my husband's love for music with scoring. We produced so many documentaries: Quantum Communication, The Voice, Here to Andromeda, Hope for Humanity, and Mona Lisa's Little Secret. David decided at a certain stage of his education to self-design his learning, and consequently studied religion, meditation, philosophy, science, physics, photography, screenwriting, art, film, music, consciousness, UFOs, crop circles, history, sacred sites, transpersonal psychology, yoga, and more. Since 1999, David has appeared on hundreds of radio shows. Does anyone know any radio shows that David's appeared on? What's a radio show that David's appeared on? Who's watched some of the radio shows? Anybody? Somebody's got to have seen something David's.
I don't think we use radios.
You don't use radios. Okay, what about internet shows?
No, actually, for me, the first time I've seen David Sereda is just a couple of
YouTube?
videos back YouTube mostly, but I haven't seen anything outside of YouTube
Right.
and the
Okay,
website.
so what did you see?
For YouTube is definitely I had mentioned he
Sasha.
done a couple of interviews
With
I think with
Sasha.
Pat and Sasha, yeah, Sasha Stone and a couple of others.
Yes.
I still haven't, and I've also seen like he also has an Instagram, I mean a YouTube
Channel.
a YouTube page for himself. So he puts in a lot of. I saw some interviews for December with the group, December 1st, I think, and I believe December 15th. A couple of those I've seen.
Okay. So since the year 1999, he's been on Coast to Coast AM. Does anyone know what Coast to Coast AM is? Art Bell, George Newry, Jimmy Church, John B. Wells, Shirley MacLaine. Does anyone know who Shirley MacLaine is? She's she's an actress and she's a author of books. You should look her up. She's very interesting. Alan Handelman, Alan Eisenberg, and so many others. He's been on TV shows, including CNN, Anderson Cooper, Fox News, History Channel, Ancient Aliens, Peter Jennings, UFO Special, Seeing is Believing. He's written many books. He's written a book called Face to Face with Jesus Christ. Did you guys know that he had a face-to-face encounter with Jesus Christ? In fact, multiple encounters with Jesus Christ. And that book is about those encounters. He has co-produced, directed, edited, and scored documentary films, and we talked about some of them already, so I won't go into that because they've already been mentioned. He's been meditating for over 40 years. And a lot of these products that are produced are as a result of his meditations and communications with God, Jesus, and the prophets. So all his works are usually accompanied by study of the Bible and biblical verses and understanding of those. This is me. I'm Sharose. I'm a lover of spirit from a very young age. I love to sing and have been singing for a long time. I've had numerous spiritual experiences myself, and one of them led me to David. I used to run a metaphysical store, hosted metaphysical people with workshops and lectures, and I used to sell products and services in that store. I have completed a master's doctorate program at the Metaphysical University in Sedona. Certified and practiced in many modalities of healing and psychic awareness. And professionally, I'm an IT person, so I do, technology, technology, now even AI, and so most of the biggest questions people always ask is, what is the difference between the wand, the coil, the bed? Why would I get one over the other? So the answer actually is very logical, so pay attention. I'm going to show you 3 pictures. Here's the coils, here's the wand, and here's the beds. Now I'm showing you the most basic products. The wand, the coils, the wand, the bed. And all I want you to do is look at these 3 things and tell me what you see is similar and tell me what you see is different. So I'm going to keep doing this. Now we'll do this. Tell me what you see is similar. Tell me what you see is different. And I'll give you 1 minute and then we'll start. I'll ask you. All right. What do you
Right.
see as similar, first of all, everybody? So start with Leroy and Gavin.
We can see that the patterns are the same for
Okay.
the coil, the wand, and the bed. They have very similar patterns.
Very good. Okay, Gavin, what do you see similar? Different from what Leroy said.
I'm not sure.
What do you see that's similar? He said patterns, and what do you see that's similar?
For me, I'm seeing the geometry. I'm seeing
Okay.
they're using copper, like I said earlier. The
Right,
size is
copper.
the sizes are different, and
Okay,
of course the transmission, the way of transmitting is different.
right. Paul, do you want to go?
I was gonna stick to the circle at the center.
Yeah.
That's similar in all of them. The copper, the point nodes. I'm trying to understand. I noticed that the points at the end of the patterns. So that I see similar, even with the flash.
Yeah.
The points are still there.
Right.
Uh,
Good. Okay. So one of you mentioned shape, the pattern. One of you mentioned size and the configuration. We all talked about all those things. So these are the differences though now. So the coils, depending on 14-inch or 24-inch, has a range of 24 feet up to 100 feet. The wand is less of a range, 3 to 6 feet. So it's good for your individual body because it's got a really small range. It'll cover your auric field. Same with the bed. It has more than a 6 feet range, actually 14, 15 feet range. So it'll go a little bit wider. But again, it's for your body. You lie on top of it or you lie it on top of you and it'll affect your body and help for raising the vibration of your body for healing. And what the difference between the bed and the wand, the 4 coils there will sit on your 4 main chakras. And because of that, not only are you surrounded in a field, but you have four fields spinning on top of each of your chakras, literally spinning your chakras for you. So it's very good for well-being. Same with the wand. It creates a field around you. The coils have two uses. One, they will put the frequency into your space. The bigger the coil, the larger the field. The more coils or the more layers, the larger the field and more potent the field. Okay?
Mhm.
So what sets these products apart? One, as in what sets these products apart from any other products out there? One, they're a David Sarita product. Why is that important? Because David Sarita not only uses his intellectual capacity to build them, but also his mental capacity, his emotional capacity, his spiritual capacity. All these products incorporate spiritual principles. So it's hard to find products out there that incorporate both scientific principles and spiritual principles so that they're made based on biblical understanding. All the materials used are all natural materials: copper, gold, silver, gems and crystals. That's all natural stuff that our body recognizes. It's not foreign to our body whatsoever. It's no touch, means you don't have to touch anything. You don't have to hold anything. None of that has to happen. You don't have to put sticky things on your body. Why is that important? Because when you have to hold something, you have someone with you there, Waweru, you want to introduce?
My wife joined me, and we were in the middle of it, so she refused to introduce herself. But just wait.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So no touch. We're going backwards because you guys disappeared. So no touch is important because when you have to hold something, it sends shockwaves to your nervous system. And so David didn't want to do that because although that's okay in the short run, in the long run, that might not be safe. He doesn't use any plastic in his equipment. It's only metals, wood, crystals, and all natural equipment. So what comes into you is all natural too. Sometimes products are made with plastics. Well, the plastics the frequencies, when they go through the plastic, you're also getting the principle of plastic into you. So you don't want those chemicals in you. So it's all natural stuff. That's why he uses the gems. There's products out there that use plasma. Again, plasma is something that our body isn't very used to. But gems, our body has gems in it. It has crystals in it. It has silver, gold, and copper in it. It knows what that is. It can recognize it. It's ancient. But gas is not something that our body is anciently aware of. It's just starting to build a relationship with it. So David sticks to gems and things like that for safety. So safety was a big concern to him because the very first client he had was a little girl who fell off a clothes dryer. And the girl smashed her arm and the nerves went in the arm. And so David built a special product, the wand, for that purpose. And within 3 months, there was movement back in her fingers and the nerves reestablished and the bones restructured. So pretty amazing stuff. So the whole point is to expand human consciousness through the frequencies, because as soon as we expand our consciousness, we're vibrating at a higher level or at a different level, a more natural level. And then when we vibrate at a more natural level, healing happens naturally. We don't have to do anything. It just happens because we're vibrating higher. So the frequencies will transform your mind and body with simple, powerful connections, basically. You can accelerate your health. You can raise your spiritual resonance. Your brainwave and mind power can be enhanced. You can explore uncharted realms of dreaming and astral projection if you use certain frequencies, and you'll go even higher with different brain waves. And you'll amplify your power to create, manifest, and create abundance as well. This is all to do with the frequencies you work with through the devices. So this
You
is,
know, funny enough, it's just a side note here.
yes,
In Africa, and I think since you're from Tanzania, you'd have an idea about this. You know, when we read something like this, it's
yes,
more or less in the witchcraft side of things. You know, when you're told, you'll get what do they say? Like
Get wealth.
you get wealth, you get relationship joining. But in
yeah.
actual fact, anything that is not true is always emanating from a level of truth. So for me to see this being at a place where it can be scientifically proven, and not only that, scientifically replicated, this becomes very interesting information for us.
Yeah, so the thing is, you have to understand when you're vibrating higher, what does it mean to vibrate higher? You're at a higher consciousness. What does that mean? Your thoughts are more aligned with the divine. Your actions are more aligned with the divine. Your words are more aligned with the divine. That's what it means to be raised in consciousness. And when you do that, automatically your emotions are more aligned with the divine. They're happier, they're more joyous, you're smiling more. And when you're in those high states, nothing can touch you because you're aligned with the divine. So when you're working with frequency, what is frequency? It's a sound. We'll go into that in the next little bit here.
Yeah.
So this is something David said. Singularity. At the point of singularity, there is, what does singular mean?
One.
One. So at the point of singularity, oneness, there is not a sound, no sound. There's only pure virgin silence, only silence. Then when there's duality, so when unity becomes duality, more than one,
Yeah.
vibration, heat, and sound and light form.
Mhm.
What forms? Vibration, heat, sound, and light. Frequency is born. Then there's multitudes of frequencies born, and each one becomes a galaxy, a star, a planet, and even us, a living being. So frequency is, we are frequency. So when we interact with these frequencies, with David's devices, we're only interacting with ourselves, a different aspect of ourselves, one aspect of ourselves, many aspects of ourselves, depending on which frequency we work with. Each one has a unique vibration made up of countless billions of frequencies. What does? A galaxy is built of countless billions of frequencies. A star is built of countless billions of frequencies. A planet is built of countless billions of frequencies. We are built of countless billions of frequencies. A dog, a cat, Leroy, Gavin, Shiroz, Paul, Waweru, and sorry, I don't know your name, wife, are all built with countless of billions of frequencies. What was the name?
My name is
Shiko.
Shiko. Nice to meet you, Shiko. And all of these countless of billions of frequencies, they blend into a cosmic symphony when they're created, because God's creation is beautiful, right? It's a dance, it's a sound, it's a musical symphony of vibration. And that vibration is known as the logos. So where else have you heard the word logos?
It's a biblical word, or
Biblical, right? So you've heard the word logos, particularly one place anyways, is in John 1:1-5. So where is the word logos from? Many places, but one place is John in the New Testament in John 1:1-5. And it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. So, in this phrase, I said, where is the word logos? I said it's in this phrase. What word here is logos? Does anyone know?
The word in the beginning. In the beginning was the word.
The
Use that
word is logos. So you can change this and you can say, in the beginning was the logos. And the logos was with God. And the logos was God. And the logos in the beginning was with God. All things were made through the logos. And with the logos, without the logos, nothing was made that was made. In logos was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. So let's just look at this side by side. At the point of singularity, there is not a sound, just pure virgin silence. In the beginning was the Word. So before the Word was pure virgin silence. Then comes the Word. At the moment of duality forms, there is vibration, heat, sound, and light. In here, you'll see the word sound. And the Word was with God. So, and the Logos was with God. So it's all about sound. What's sound? Sound is a frequency. What's frequency? Frequency is a word. What's sound? A word is a sound. When you speak, you're making a sound. When you say a word, you're saying a sound. What sound? It's a vibration. What's a vibration? It's a frequency. You understand what I'm getting at? Everything is frequency. Everything is sound, basically. Everything is sound and light. The whole universe is made of sound and light.
It sounds to me like this is not only true, but these things are conjugating. Like the faces are conjugating within themselves.
Yes.
When you talk about the word, when you talk about logos, it's almost like a breathe in, breathe out kind of a process.
Yes, and so you have to understand that when it comes to scripture, scripture has not one meaning, but hundreds of meanings. So on one level, the word logos is sound. On another level, the word logos is Jesus Christ. On another level, the word logos is a human being even. You understand the depth of scripture? That how deep it can go? Do you understand? It has multiple meanings, not just one meaning. Because it's a word of God. Word of God is not easy and simple. It's easy and simple and complicated. Make sense? Okay, so what's the proof that frequency affects consciousness? So Jesus taught this in the Gospel of the Egyptians from the Hammadi library. Sorry?
I'm seeing Leroy lifting his hand, so I'm thinking he has a question.
Oh, please go ahead, Leroy. I can't see Leroy. He's fuzzy for some reason.
How did Legos come to begin?
How did logos come to begin?
Yes.
Wow. Well, if you look here at the point of singularity, there is not a sound, just pure virgin silence. So from logos came from silence. Logos came from nothingness. Logos came from God. How logos came from God? Only God can tell us. And only your heart can tell you. So you have to talk to God and you have to talk to your heart. So the best place to get answers like that is from God. Make sense?
Yes.
Good. Okay. That was a hard question. Good thing I asked God how to answer it.
We
Okay.
can really, and I think my son, the thing about my son is if the more you get, the more he gets comfortable with you, he'll be able to actually ask even further about such, or expound further of the reason why he felt like asking that question. It's things that we talk about every day. We are co-workers with God, and we are where he's not, and where he's not, and where we are not, he is.
Yes,
He starts
of
at the
course.
end, and we start in the beginning, and so
That's right.
it always
He's the beginning and the end. There is no place where God is and God isn't. There is no beginning and end. So when you try to ask me a question like where did the logos come from? Only God knows where the logos came.
It actually came from that question itself, which is
Correct.
from him, the one asking. And so that's why I said, like, it's a phase conjugating process.
Right.
It's a negentropic entropic kind of a relationship. When we are entropy, he becomes negentropy. When we are negentropy, he becomes entropy.
Right.
You look at the course of gravity, the course of consciousness,
Yeah.
the creation of soul. It is the same aspect as the functioning of an atom is the same aspect as the functioning of the frequencies that we are talking about. So
Right.
it is all it's all
encompassing.
We are all, and even this conversation, where it goes, who it reaches, they are already here with us. And so we are the happening. We are the creation of God, and we are the God of creation, all at the same time.
Very good. That your dad gave a better answer than me. Thank you, Waweru, for helping me.
A relationship. It's not. Yours was better than mine as well, but both of ours becomes, the answer
All
for
of
this
ours
moment.
together is
Another question comes, and we don't know, and then we know.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So Jesus taught the singing of 7 sacred vows as tones in the Gospel of the Egyptians from the Nag Hammadi Library. So Nag Hammadi Library, does anyone know history of Nag Hammadi Library?
An idea, but please explain.
So Nag Hammadi Library is books from the Bible that were found in caves that nobody knew existed until they were found. And so they were been translated, and now they're becoming available. One book in there is called the Gospel of the Egyptians. In there, Jesus teaches singing of sacred vows as tones. So Egyptian followers of Jesus knew that toning was the method of raising one's vibration and turning on the light body. So back then they used to chant 22 times each. Jesus told them to chant the 7 vowels 22 times. So 22 divided by 7 is actually pi, 3.142857 mathematically as well. So according to David, this shows Jesus's awareness of proportion and harmonic ratio. It also shows us that Jesus used a music scale known to ancient Egyptians, which we will see here onwards. The Gospel of Egyptians expresses the highest divinities as sounds. So the highest divinities were expressed as sounds by the Gospel of the Egyptians. The divine was even expressed as a sound. Logos is a sound. The word is a sound. Names followed the sounds. So before there was names, there were sounds. The name of God had only vowels. So what are vowels? A, E, I, O, U. So, and they would say these sounds, and Jesus taught them to say 7 vowels 22 times. So, for example, this line here, they used to do things like this. And a sound is a vibration is a frequency, and they used to do this with their mouth. So the difference with doing it with your mouth or inside you versus the frequency with the device, David created the frequency in the device because you have faster, more potent result. because it's coming from the outside into you and becoming you versus you reciting it slowly. E, A, O, U. But you still want to do that. You still want to do the natural chanting yourself as well, because then you will align with what you're doing with the devices and the frequency. Understand?
Yeah.
I'm smiling because do you have an idea of the 7 vowels that David is talking about?
Well,
that has
David
been
isn't
discussed?
talking about it. Jesus was talking about it.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant.
And I just recited some of them. We only have 7 vowels: A, E, I, O, U, sometimes Y, sometimes U with a different form, right?
So in my culture, when I was studying my language,
Yes.
we had 7 vowels, which is A, E, I, O, U. And
Woo.
then now
There you go.
English version removes
2 of them.
I think 5 because there is
Yeah,
no
yeah.
A and there is no O.
Right. So what
Yeah,
I
so that's
would love is all of us to do these vowels, and you do them your way, I'll do them my way, because I only know 5. I don't know what the 7 are, even though it says 7. I only learned 5. So you do
I'll
your,
tell you what the 7. I'll tell you what the other 2 are.
okay.
Uh-huh.
Tell us what the
It's
other 2.
so it is A, E, A, O, U, O. So there is the
A, E, E,
A and A is different. A and A is different. So there is A,
A,
E,
E,
A,
U.
O, U, O.
Oh, wow. You have to write that down and send it to me, okay? Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for that, Waweru. See, we learned something together now. And Jesus said to say these vowels, so we should all be saying these vowels. The Pythagoreans, Pythagoras was a philosopher in the day. He lived and breathed musical tones. Their god was the music that their body could perceive in the planets, the stars, and cosmos, while instruments tuned them to this experience of sound and spiritual light. So back in the day, they believed sound to be their god. They didn't any sound in the planets, the stars, and cosmos. To them, that was
Uh-huh.
God. You know, today they say, you know, man in the sky with a beard is a god, but in that day, sound was God. The planets were gods. The cosmos was God to these people. And Pythagoras birthed the basis for the modern music scale. So this music scale we have today was as a result of Pythagoras. He traveled to ancient Egypt and studied math, proportions, and harmony. He
Are you
invented the
sharing something?
Sorry?
Are you sharing? I think it's oh,
Yeah, I'm sharing a screen.
got it.
Yeah, Pythagoras birthed the basis for the modern music scale. He also traveled to ancient Egypt and studied math, proportions, and harmony. He invented the monochord. What's a monochord? What's mono?
1.
1. What's a chord? Yeah, on your guitar, there's a chord, right? Yes,
Yeah.
a monochord is 1 chord instrument. So he invented a 1 chord instrument. And he taught music scale based on ratios of divine proportions. Ratio and frequency must be understood to be the only true universal math that survives different units of measure. Once you understand this, you can perceive musical tones as the only language that transcends cultures, planets, stars, the cosmos, and unites them all as any unit of measure produces the same ratio and frequency. So we have all these different languages, but if we didn't have any language, then the one thing that unites us all is the ability of us to be able to tone, make sounds, and we could communicate with our sounds and figure it out eventually what we want to say to each other intuitively if we didn't have language. Make sense?
Makes sense.
And same with anything in the universe. Everything has frequency. The pillow has frequency. The watch has frequency. The car has frequency. Everything has frequency. Everything has a means we can communicate with if we want to communicate at that level.
Okay,
Because
my son has a
ultimately,
question.
because ultimately we're all atoms. We're all light, actually,
Yes.
right? Photons, light. We're all light. So, but at the basis of light is the atomic structure, the photonic structure.
Leroy, do you have a question?
I do.
Oh,
What you're learning?
yes.
Is it Scientology about what you've learned right now?
Like he's asking
No.
whether there is any relationship between these and Scientology.
No relation. No relation. I haven't studied Scientology. I don't know what Scientology is. This is just from the
That's all.
Bible, from the Nag Hammadi library, and from David's equipment and David's teaching of science.
Oh,
Science.
Scientology, they believe that humans are God, and they're
Right.
called theoms, and they believe that a long time ago they could create anything they want, and then but they lost their ways. Then they were trapped in earth and in these bodies.
Wow.
So
You're amazing, Leroy.
thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. So I want to tell you, in the Bible, there's a verse and it says, we live, move, and have our being in God. We live, move, and have our being in God. So you can say you're God in that sense, but you can't say you're God and there's no other God. Or you can't say you're God and God doesn't exist. No, it doesn't work that way. You live, move, and have your being in God. In that sense, you're God. God moves through you, and God works through you. That way, you're God. If you let yourself, and if God lets you, you have to be the best person you can be for that relationship to take place perfectly. The most loving, the most giving, the most generous, the most honest, all those good qualities have to be in you. Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Good job. So we measure frequency based on how many oscillations or vibrations a wave makes per second. So that's how frequency is measured, the number of vibrations a wave makes in a second. Each planet is spinning around 1 time per day, and then they rotate around the sun 1 time per year. And what this tells us is that time is made up of parts that are relative to life on Earth, not the solar system or the universe itself. So where do we find the answers? And if we follow, hold on 1 second, okay, guys? So where do we find the answers? And if we follow all these people, Pythagoras we talked about, Jesus we talked about, Moses a little bit we talked about, but you'll end up in Egypt. They all got their answers for Egypt. Orpheus went to Egypt to find the lost music scale. Pythagoras went to Egypt to study. Archimedes, which is the father of modern physics, he went to Egypt to study. Leonardo of Pisa, which is the father of Phi, he went to Egypt to study. Moses and Jesus were both raised in Egypt. So the answers seem to come from Egypt. Why is it that when we use music scale, we express frequencies in whole numbers? So when our music scale right now is in whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But the real music scale, because we do that because we like to round off, but the real music scale is not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 1.1 to 9th degree of whatever, 2 to the whatever. It's a ratio. It's not a whole number, but we've rounded things off. But they knew what the music scale was, and David Sarita discovered it. So the frequencies he makes, he also incorporates the ratios into those frequencies, which no one else out there will do for you. So that's the other reason you want to work with David's frequencies. And he learned from the Bible that you should do that, because everything in the Bible is of ratio. It's not exact numbers.
Okay.
So now I'm just going to quickly go over some of the frequencies that David includes. One is called the pineal gland frequency. The pineal gland frequency activates your luminous chemical production in your brain. And with it, you can, it's a secret star sound frequency that causes dramatic pineal gland activations. So your pineal gland is your third eye. It's in the middle of your brain. And when you work with this frequency, you can experience bliss and clarity and knowing. And it works with your crown and your third eye. And you'll be able to have better, if you don't know God or don't see God or don't have an understanding of God, it'll relighten that stuff in you. Fibonacci and true phi, those are numbers mathematically. Fibonacci numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. What's the next number of 20 after 21? What's the next number after 21, Leroy?
34.
Very good. So Fibonacci numbers, you just add the previous number and the current number to get the next number. That's what the Fibonacci numbers are. And this is known as the golden ratio, 1.618. And this 1.618 is everywhere in nature, including your own body. You will notice that your waist is not exactly halfway. It's the ratio for your waist is 1.618. Your elbow is not exactly halfway. The ratio is 1.618. This is all, God made nature, God made you. Everything is based on 1.618. It's God's frequency. It's the frequency of nature. So David has created a frequency library of these frequencies, so you can work with those frequencies. So it's David's frequencies are very specific.
Maybe even I'm sorry, Sharoz. Because we have an idea about the golden ratio and how it
Yes.
affects us on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
If you look at a flower, if you look at basically the micro,
Right.
makes a lot of sense. Everything is in the 1.618
Right.
something like that. But this I found very interesting, that when you go to the macro, which is the planets, you
Right.
find that the rotation of a planet around the sun
Yes.
moves in golden ratio based on maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I know Leroy loves things to do with planets quite a bit, so he'll find this very interesting.
Well, it's just the same thing, right? 1.618 is everywhere in nature. I don't know the 1.618 in the planets, unfortunately. I know what I learned from the body, from nature, from flowers. Cauliflower is 1.618. Flowers are 1.6. Planets do also have 1.618, which is a golden ratio. And David Sarita has done a lot of talks on it, and you can watch some of his videos, Leroy, and learn from him directly. It's better for you to learn from him better than me, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So all star systems have a frequency. So David used the data based on the NASA data of the radius of the stars and created a library of the frequencies of the star systems. So Pleiades and Sirius and all those star system frequencies, David's created them for us. So we have those libraries. Prime numbers. What's a prime number? Somebody tell me.
Numbers that can't be divided.
Correct. Very good. They can only be divided by themselves. So when you work with these frequencies, with numbers that can only be divided by themselves, you travel forward or backwards in time. And that's David's discovery. So when you work with these frequencies, you will also have thoughts of traveling forward and backwards in time. So you can use these frequencies to work out past trauma. You can use these frequencies to when you use these frequencies, sometimes you'll go into past lives and you'll have memories of past lives, and you'll be able to understand your life as a result of your past lives. You can use these frequencies if you're worried about the future. You can use these frequencies to understand your past. Then you have something called infinities. So these are infinite frequencies. 1 divided by 1.11, 1 divided by 2.22. These are infinite numbers. And when you work with infinite numbers, then what's infinite? What does infinite mean?
Never
It's unending, right? It's endless. It's forever. So this is a good frequency to use when you're interested in abundance.
Yeah.
This is a good frequency to use when you want infinite creativity, infinite answers, infinite resources, infinite love, infinite bliss. But when you work with any of these frequencies, you want to have an intention as well to work with your frequencies. I mean, the Lord, the divine knows what you need. So when you work with them and you don't have an intention, you're going to receive what you need to receive. But the other way to work with them is to work with a specific intention and say, you know, I need infinite abundance right now. I need infinite love right now, and work with the frequency. And that will get you more closer to your experience too. Then there's the planet frequencies that David gives you. So there's the frequency of the sun. The sun is the most powerful frequency in my humble opinion, because it represents so many things: love, invigoration, vitality, strength, stamina. The sun does so many things for us. It prevents your DNA from degenerating. It purifies you. It restructures poisonous things in you. And this is based on the NASA sound of the sun. And when you listen to it, it almost sounds like the Om sound. It's very good for the heart when you listen to this frequency. It's most of the people that call me and tell me they've healed also have healed with this frequency, and only this frequency, because it's so all-encompassing. Mercury. So, you know, sometimes we hear Mercury is retrograde, which means it's not affecting us. And Mercury, when Mercury is retrograde, if you do this frequency, Mercury won't be retrograde for you, because you're working with Mercury even when it's not working for you. So that's Mercury's frequency, and it's good for health and focus. Just so you know, the different planets are associated with different brain waves. So Mercury's affects your beta brain waves.
Okay.
Earth affects your theta brain waves. And Earth, as you might know, is for grounding, because when you ground with the Earth, you're more centered. Mars is your alpha beta brain waves, and that's for focusing your life force energy, extreme focus on it, something. It affects your root chakra when you work with it. Venus is all about love, and it affects your alpha theta frequency brain waves. And you would use Venus when you want more love, when you have anger issues, when you have a bad temper. That would balance that out. And then Pluto, that's a gamma brainwave frequency. And that will help you, you know, when you work with this frequency, you'll be experiencing your aha moments and synchronicities and that kind of stuff. It's also for super focus. And you would use this if you need ideas, you want to increase your passion, that kind of stuff. Need new inspiration. So yeah, so that's the end of my presentation. And I went over some frequencies with you. I went over why frequencies. I went over the product a little bit and why we use the materials we do in the products. And now I'm going to open it up to let you ask any questions you might want to ask.
I think for me, mine is just to, first of all, I'm so happy that we get to have this conversation, because it's a timely conversation where we are not only talking about the things, we're not only talking about God, but we are also talking about what God has already freely given us.
Yes.
And the wisdom that He brings to us. why I love these times that we are living in right now is because it's a culmination. Before religion, or before people started understanding about the church, people related with their own traditions. And what church was supposed to do, it was supposed to be the place where people get enlightened for the next level of knowledge, for the
Right.
next of knowledge.
Right.
And the church was modeled because anything positive or anything negative has a positive aspect to it.
Right.
Just because it was hijacked does not mean that it did not have the intention or the real intention for a positive purpose. And I believe that the church was designed to spread love and to spread unity and community healing, basically. And so
Absolutely.
the question would be how these technologies actually relate with the church, and maybe this gets into what we were talking about, us being actually able to recreate the Holy of Holies. Maybe you can speak a little bit about that, so that my people can know that we when we say we want to heal our nation, when we say we want to bring peace in our nation, it's not just, we're not just saying it because everybody else is saying it, but it's because we actually know how to do it.
Well, again, this is another whole other topic to discuss, but when we talk about the Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, David believes that's the Great Pyramid of Giza is a temple of God. It had nothing to do with the Egyptians. Why? Because it has the same mathematics and properties in it that are mentioned in the Bible for Moses, for Jesus, for Adam, for Abraham, for Noah even. All the math is the same for all of them. And then it's the same for the Pyramid of Giza. So now we believe that the Pyramid of Giza was also a mount of God. And Jesus called himself the cornerstone, and the cornerstone is the top of the pyramid, right? So there's all these things to consider. And I believe this knowledge was given to Jesus because to David, because it has been forgotten and it needs to be brought back, and it'll come back. And by bringing this back, people will see everything is a crutch, whether it's David's stuff, whether it's other stuff, whether it's you go to a healer or anybody. It's a crutch. You heal yourself. But in order for you to heal yourself, you have to remember how to do it. You have to know how to do it. And so, when you work with these things, and when you work with a leader or a healer, you will learn your own self. You will know your own self. You will remember yourself. And you want to work with something like this, and you want to work with healers and spiritual healers. I'm talking not just any healers, spiritual healers and leaders that have already been anointed by the light of God, because that's the way you'll open up your light and be able to recognize yourself. And the design and the sacred geometry in these devices will communicate with the different temples and churches out there, because it's the same language, it's the same frequency. So you'll be enhancing, you'll be emanating that vibration through that space, especially if you run the proper frequency through it. Make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, Shairoz. Paul, do you have any question? Leroy, Gavin, do you guys have a question?
Yes. How are they able to tell, or how could you tell that what the frequencies of the planets are?
Well, I just went through them all with you. These are all the frequencies.
But
no, he's asking how you
are able to define.
He's asking how are you able to know that that is the specific frequency of that?
Because David worked for NASA. David worked for NASA. He had access to everything.
Okay.
He had the actual recordings of the actual sounds of these planets, and he was able to enhance them and encompass them and receive them from there and actually match it with his own meditations and knowledge.
I know he has the frequency of the Ark of the Covenant, and I saw him describe his experience with that frequency. Do you have any information about that? Maybe you can talk a little bit about it.
Look, all the frequencies David has have come to him as a result of his divine communication with God, Jesus, in meditation. So the day the Ark of the Covenant came to him, it was a morning that it came to him after his meditation, and he was able to do the math for it and create it. That's how all his frequencies have come to him. He's had a meditation, some kind of communication, and he's created it. So
That's because in this country at this point, there is a lot of conversations about, and I think I mentioned a bit of this, about the Ark of the Covenant and its whereabouts, about Mount Kenya,
yes.
about
Many
Mount
people,
Zion.
many people claim Ark of the Covenant in all these different places in the
Yeah,
world. I'm a
and yeah,
firm believer in, instead of thinking of one place in the world as being only ours, we should think of the whole earth as
exactly.
being ours. Whether
That's
it's
exactly.
Israel, whether it's Africa, whether it's Palestine, whatever the place is, it's all ours, right? So Israel has so many meanings, and it's just as important and beautiful and everything godly as is Africa, and we all need to see each other as divine manifestations of each other and recognize that we're all one. More important than anything else.
I believe so, because anything that brings separation
Yeah,
is not in this time, is not for this particular time. I
right.
believe that the war that we've been fighting, even between culture and church, and all
Yeah,
these religions, I believe that war is over.
yeah,
And I understand why the church had to happen when it did happen,
yeah,
and I understand why it had to hurt culture the way it did. But
yeah,
I also understand that when we thought that colonization was over, that time it was, especially in Africa, that time it was just being reset properly to accommodate almost everyone, or to give some sort of peace to the slavery experience at that particular time. And so the slavery experience might have been over, but the colonizer, or the mental colonization, is ending at this season, or in this season. And so why we are even able to have these kind of conversations with you, and which I believe, when this happens, this energy and this vibration enters into our country without even doing much more.
yeah.
The reason why this is a possibility is because the time is ripe. The time is ripe for
For global communication.
spiritually, a culture to come together and
Yeah,
see we understand that everything is, we're seeing something from different perceptions, right?
yeah,
And so when we look at the whole, and that thing is love, there's nothing else to it. And so one of the things that I really appreciate you guys is how you are willing to bring this knowledge to us, how you are willing to design these scepters. We have churches still using the scepter of Rome and expecting to have impact in our generation and in our communities. And it's not going to happen until we have our own scepters from our own leaders. And now we have the capacity to build them, and we have the ability to build them.
Gavin,
Did you have a question
can you
about the
repeat
sun?
that question, please?
Yeah. How does the sun stop our DNA from degenerating or something like that?
so the sun in general does that. So in general, our sun energizes us. And when you listen to the frequency of the sun, it's same as you getting the sun rays from the sun. Just you're getting it from the sound of the sun instead of the actual light of the sun. Remember in the beginning we talked about sound and light and how everything's created from sound and light? So you go outside and
Yes.
get the light of the sun, but the sound,
Yeah.
the sun is also making a sound at that point, but we can't hear it because it's so far away.
Yes.
So
And
this
the
is the
and the
same thing. So this is the same thing. We're getting the sound of the sun here. We're not getting the light of the sun, but we are in a way because sound is light in a way. Um, and so
okay.
it's giving us the same experience as we would if we were to go and sit in the sun. So let's say something happens and we can't go outside. If you listen to the frequency of the sun, you would get the experience of the sun light hitting you. Make sense a little bit?
Yeah, that makes sense. That means it can actually explain why you could still be indoors. I'm not saying that indoors would be better,
No, of
but you could
course.
still be indoors, but still have the
Yes.
effect of
Right.
feel the effect of the sun.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we always assume just because if we can't hear a sound, the sound doesn't exist.
Right.
But we
Yeah,
know
in
that
this
there
case,
are
in this
frequencies
case,
that
that's right. And in this case, you won't hear the sound. You won't physically hear it. The sound will come through the
yeah.
devices and it'll grow through your system, but you won't hear it through your ears. You'll hear it if you disconnect the cable and you just listen to it. But once it goes through the equipment, you won't hear it.
Well, thank you so much, Shiroz. And like I said, anybody who would like to get something from you guys, you've already, you're working with us to help us even build churches here in Kenya. So when guys, I want people to come and order things from you guys. Check out the website. When they're making the order, the only thing they just need to say is they're supporting our work in Kenya, and you get to know that they're coming from us.
Yeah, and we'll support your work in Kenya while you support us. We'll support each
Yes,
other.
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We love you guys.
We
I hope
love
to
you
do
too.
this again. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you, Waweru. I feel like family. I want to go visit Africa right now.
Trust me, you're definitely going to come because I mean, but once we start doing this with churches, once we start getting these technologies out there and show people that they can actually receive healing for real, and it's something that is replicable to each and every individual.
Yes.
I mean, you're definitely going to have to come here.
Okay, my dear.
You're definitely going to have to do conferences and then further explain how the heck this is working better than laying hands and people waking up and still taking their diseases home.
My brother, thank you so much. Sister, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with you all.
It's an honor.
Thank you, Paul.
Bye.
Bye, young
All
one.
right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For
Love you
Bye.
all.
Bye.
Bye.
Gavin and
Bye.
Hi, this is David Sarita from davidsarita.co. I was born in 1961. My father was got a PhD in educational psychology from UC Berkeley, and my four brothers and I and my mom, when We all grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 60s movement. And, you know, on my way home from school one day at the age of 7, I saw a flying saucer, pandemonium on the streets. And that event would really have a huge impact on my future because I could never forget about it. And I used to watch Star Trek as a kid. I was a bit of a sci-fi, you know, fan growing up, dreaming about being an astronaut one day. And, you know, when I was in my school years, I took law, got the highest marks in my class, you know, in the high school level. I took physics. And, you know, when I came upon the works of Nikola Tesla and started studying his patents, it really threw me in a different direction because I couldn't understand why a genius at this level was not being taught in our school systems. And the more I studied physics, the more I became interested in much more advanced concepts for energy, technology, and propulsion systems. And I realized that our current understanding and knowledge of those systems was so weak, and that I wanted to know more, and I didn't want to be peer reviewed in the traditional sense of you know, finishing a degree in physics. And so I decided to study on my own, and I actually studied Tesla very, very thoroughly. And, you know, with the influence of my father, I was introduced to the practices of meditation and breathing techniques and natural techniques for expanding one's consciousness. And I grew up with that and started practicing these techniques every single day in my early teen years all the way forward to the present day. So I really developed an understanding of how human consciousness works, what it takes to take human consciousness to a much more expanded and higher frequency state. But I also found that there were tools and techniques used in the history of the Bible that also were used as tools to bring the priests to higher and higher states of consciousness, that it wasn't just as simple as believing in a religion and following basic practices. There were really, really deep practices. So I've kind of merged science and spirituality. And actually in the early 90s, I met and started working with an MIT PhD physicist, professor at Rutgers University, Bogdan Castle-Maglich, who was from the same country as Tesla, and in fact was instrumental in bringing the statue bust of Tesla to the memorial at Westinghouse's Niagara Falls power plant. And Maglich actually was pursuing a form of nuclear fusion energy, an environmentally benign form of energy. And it spent over 25 million research dollars on it. And I became part of his team in about 1994. And I worked with Maglich and Associates for about 22 years. And I had access to some of the biggest names in the physics community in the world, people like Murray Gell-Mann, who won the Nobel Prize, discoverer of quarks, Norman Rostocker, who won the Maxwell Prize in physics, which is higher than the Nobel Prize. Glenn Seaborg, who chaired the atomic energy under Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, and his assistant, Albert Ghiorso, probably one of the most brilliant particle physicists in the world. And working for physicists, my job was to translate the Greek of not understanding Greek physics into layperson's terms and do a lot of military communications and a lot of communications in the financial sector, which included NASA. I did all the correspondences with Earl Van Landingham, who was director of propulsion, power, and energy at NASA in the 90s. And Earl was very interested in this form of energy. He was tired of the space shuttles, you know, solar panel systems with very limited power. And Earl actually told me that Maglich's nuclear fusion drive fusing deuterium and helium-3, which is found in moon dust, could send spacecraft up to 1/10 the speed of light, which would be the most advanced propulsion system of all time. In fact, that's a velocity greater than the Navy has tracked these unidentified flying objects at, which peak somewhere in the radar at around 80,000 miles an hour, and our fighter jets are fighting to do 2,500 miles an hour. So that gives you a comparison, right? So I really studied technology, and then I started developing my own technology, you know, around the year 2000. I had this I started having visions, blinding visions of Christ in 1994, which started to happen very periodically. And these blinding visions of Christ shining like way, way brighter than our sun, Jesus started teaching me. And I wrote a book called Face to Face with Jesus Christ, which still there are used copies of on Amazon today, a work that was actually stolen by my publisher and I was never remunerated for. And I started again getting this ability to perceive world and personalities beyond our world. I could actually see them. I actually saw Christ standing in front of me, shining with this enormous, enormous power that I'm talking about. And one day in the year 2000, I still have my original note on this. There was Tesla shining with light, not nowhere near as bright as Christ, but with two other angelic beings wearing white robes with golden cords. And Tesla blasted into my consciousness this vortex mathematical model, incredible, incredible model, which I called the galaxy clock. And in about the year 2000, I started appearing in world media. I started appearing on Art Bell, and my initial appearances on Art Bell had 35 million people watching. And I became a regular on the Art Bell show, and dozens of radio shows were calling me after those interviews to talk to me, and go deeper and deeper and deeper into my understanding of the UFO phenomena and the anti-gravity phenomena and advanced technology phenomena. And I have actually appeared on CNN Anderson Cooper with Dan Aykroyd to release my film with Dan Aykroyd, Unplugged on UFOs. I appeared in Peter Jennings' UFO special, the History Channel, the Learning Channel, the first couple of seasons of Ancient Aliens I appeared in, and they asked me back, and I frankly turned them down because I thought they were editing me out too much and not really letting me share my deeper understanding. And I started going on literally hundreds of radio shows, reaching between 30 and 50 million people a year in the period between 2000 and about, and the current day. And the current day, even though I also was used as a regular on Fox News to do UFO stories in the 2000 period, 2000 to 2010, I was kind of a regular featured UFO speaker for Fox News. And so I started developing coil systems for therapy and healing, and also for raising human frequency and consciousness and expanding consciousness. In fact, my coil systems, like these double vortex counter-rotational 14-pointed star coil systems, are very unlike Tesla's. Tesla's coils were cylindrical, flat squares and flat circles. He didn't really build coils that involved meaningful geometry, but he was the father of the earliest coil systems. And in fact, in the books of Moses, God tells Moses to put a copper serpent, which is a symbolic language for a copper coil, on a pole. In the Bible books of Moses, God tells Moses to put a copper fiery serpent, which is the language of symbols. It's not an actual serpent. A copper serpent would be a coil of copper on a pole, fiery meaning it's radiant, meaning it radiates energy. And in fact, that's exactly what Nikola Tesla did. And his first simple coils were used to transmit the very first radio signals on Earth. In fact, the US Supreme Court rules June 21st, 1943, that Tesla, Sir Albert Lodge, and Stone are the true fathers of radio, and that Marconi borrowed Tesla's patents to demonstrate a radio broadcast across the Atlantic. So Tesla is really duplicating what the God of the Bible was saying. And I think he understood it the same way I did. So my coil systems today at davidsradio.co are used to expand human consciousness, but also for therapeutic reasons. And there's ample evidence there to show it has a profound impact on disease, but with the caution that we can't scientifically prove medically or state medically, legally, that frequencies have any impact on this. But here's one thing I found very interesting. Nikola Tesla lived and worked in extremely high voltage and high frequency environments. And in fact, he exposed his body to millions of volts of electricity running directly through his nervous system several times to demonstrate that when voltage is and current are at high frequencies, they're not harmful to the body. And the fact that Tesla was around energy fields that were in the range of several Tesla, meaning Tesla as a unit of magnetic field strength. And today, when we think of measuring background radiation on a Gauss meter, and you might see upwards of 2 or 3 milligauss, which is a thousandth of a Gauss. So there's 1,000 milligauss in a Gauss, and then you take a Gauss times 10,000 and you're at 1 Tesla. So my systems produce fields of energy that are beautiful and harmonic. And because the human nervous system has a magnetic field that has been proven and measured at Dartmouth College, the human heart has a magnetic field, the human brain has a magnetic field, we therefore can receive frequencies in the same way we are affected by musical frequencies. We can therapeutically, just like the way we respond to music, alter the way we feel and tune the way we feel with tuned, what I call tuned magnetic field instrumentation. And we see evidence of this in the Bible, right? We see the temple measurements of the Holy of Holies, and then we see the Ark of the Covenant with its measurements. We see the staffs of Moses and Aaron and the 12 tribe members. And we also see Jesus in Mark 6:1-8, telling the apostles that when he disperses them across the planet to preach the gospel and to do healings and to ward off evil, that the apostles must have their staffs with them. So I actually did years of research into the staff as an instrument, as a frequency instrument, and found that not unlike an antenna, that an antenna's height, a monopole antenna's height, is 1/4 of the wavelength of the energy it transmits and receives that. So therefore, if a staff had a copper coil on it and it was a metallic pole, it would act as a tuner, receiver, transmitter to the human nervous system, which means that God wanted the prophets to have their nervous system tuned almost in a way musically at these very, very high frequencies. And I was able to do the math, find out the true length of the staff of Moses and the apostles, and therefore know its frequency, which is really the God frequency. And I also found in studying in the Bible, the breastplate of Aaron and many other devices, including the temples itself, that doing the mathematics of the speed of light in inches divided by the wavelength in inches, I could determine the frequencies of the holy temples, of the Ark of the Covenant, of the staffs, and therefore develop these tools for use for people today. And people who use these systems have profound experiences. They have profound, they can legally testify to their own healing in their own body, even though medically you can't actually state or prove that, but people can testify to what how my systems have changed people's lives. And now we're in the process of trying to get this technology into standard stereo speakers so that speakers can transmit full frequency range sound. So if you buy a speaker today, most of them start at 38 or 40 hertz at the bottom, but humans can hear from 20 to 20,000 hertz. And then human brains operate between a half a hertz all the way up to the upper parts of the audio spectrum, past 20,000 hertz. So our nervous system and brain have this huge capacity, but our stereo systems can't put that capacity out. With my systems added to a stereo system, you can actually transmit full range frequencies. And that's for the benefit of the human experience.
Now,
it never made sense to me. How could the speed of light be exactly 186,282 miles per second instead of point something miles? It ends at the 2,
Right.
186,282 instead of 182 point something.
So Crystal, how did you know that?
I just knew instinctually, you know, when you work from your center a lot, you just have feelings about what's, or knowings, not even
Absolutely,
feelings.
yeah.
It was just a knowing
Yeah.
that it was off and it wasn't precise enough. And sure enough, when he decodes things, he gets down to
Well,
the exact decimal of everything.
I looked into the early Michelson-Morley experiments, which were done in Irvine, California, in this tunnel,
Right.
when they were trying to define the speed of light as an absolute measurement. Now, it never made sense to me. How could the speed of light be exactly 186,282 miles per second instead of point something miles? It ends at the 2,
Right.
186,282 instead of 182 point something.
So Crystal, how did you know that?
I just knew instinctually, you know, when you work from your center a lot, you just have feelings about what's, or knowings, not even
Absolutely,
feelings.
yeah.
It was just a knowing
Yeah.
that it was off and it wasn't precise enough. And sure enough, when he decodes things, he gets down to
Well,
the exact decimal of everything.
I looked into the early Michelson-Morley experiments, which were done in Irvine, California, in this tunnel,
Right.
when they were trying to define the speed of light as an absolute measurement.